Hey, I'm Vilma Bim. You can call me Nate, and I'm a software engineer at GitHub. I work on GH, the GitHub CLI. So today I'm here to talk about some new features, in fact, a lot of new features that are in GH as of version 1.9, and they are all around integrating with GitHub Actions. So we're going to talk through some of the new commands under the GH run umbrella as well as GH workflow. Um, let's jump right into it. So right off the bat, I want to investigate a linter failure. So when I list some recent runs, you can see that I had a lint failure earlier, and we're going to see what happened there. So we can see in the annotations list, we had an ineffectual assignment to error in watch.go 182. So with one command, got to the root of the problem, we can jump in and fix it. Sure enough, some mysteriously commented out code. So while we're in here to demonstrate some more stuff, I'm going to intentionally cause some test failures so we can experience that together as well. Going to put a bad test here and push it like the excellent software engineer that I am. Committing is helpful. Excellent. Bad test. And now we're just going to watch that go with GH run watch. So we'll grab the tests run. And so this is just going to fill in as things run. It would be very tedious for us to sit here and actually watch that go. So we're going to jump into another repository over here in this new pane, show off something else. So we just looked at run view and run list. So we're not going to go into rerun today. That's for like rerunning a run that maybe has flaky failures that you want to rerun and confirm what's going on. We've got watch going right now, so we're going to look at download real fast. So run download lets you grab artifacts from a run. Artifacts are files that are uploaded while a run is going. And we're going to exercise this by grabbing a randomized poem from somewhere. So first, we're going to use GH workflow view to check out this file poem.yaml. Let's actually grab the YAML here. We can see that I've run it with mixed results recently. I'm pretty sure it'll work this time. And the YAML file is going to run a tiny little bit of bash. It's going to clone my personal repository, which is actually updated daily with a cron job. Runs on my personal desktop, and it just generates a poem based on Project Gutenberg novels in the public domain and puts it in my README there. So our script just has to clone the repo, tail the README, grab the last 17 lines, drops it in a file. And then we upload that as an artifact using the upload artifact action. So we're going to run that with GH workflow run. I'm specifying ref here because I want to use the version of the YAML file on the branch that I'm currently on, as opposed to just the default branch in my repository. We will wait for that to finish. Now we're watching 2 runs. This would be a good time for GH to trigger some like Muzak or something, or should let you play a mini game. I think maybe I'll add one. Okay, so it ran, it succeeded, so we're going to go ahead and use GH run download. So GH is going to look at our repository, it's going to look at the runs that have happened, and it's just going to go ahead and give me the option to download any of the artifacts that have been generated. So some of these are from other runs, but we're interested in the poem, not the TPS report, and definitely not the DaVinci virus. So we're going to grab that, and sure enough, there is poem.txt in our local directory. So there are more options for run download. You can specify individual names. You can get a bunch of artifacts at once. It'll automatically unzip things for you. Very flexible. So it looks like we're still waiting on our tests over here to complete. These are real world tests. These are the actual tests for the CLI repo. And so, we have a whole build matrix to get through, and we're still waiting on that to complete. So while that's going, we'll look at a few more things. So other commands under GH workflow, we just saw view, we just saw run, and let's see what other workflows are on this repo. We've got this one called pull request check. So this workflow is designed to do some light automation on PRs that come into a repository. You might want to check to make sure that a pull request has certain features, maybe automatically close it or comment on it. So right now this workflow file is pretty straightforward. We'll take a look at it. You'll note that the first thing that I want to point out about this workflow file is it responds to two different events. It responds to pull request target, meaning that it runs every time there's a pull request, and it also runs on workflow dispatch. So that means that we can run it manually. This is really useful because if we want to test it while we maybe change the behavior, we don't have to actually open a new pull request every time. That would get pretty old. So when you run it manually, you provide inputs, provided a body to make sure so we can test out some of the automation logic, and you pass it this test flag. This is how the job actually knows that it's being run under test as opposed to for real. So down in our actual bash, if test is true, we set PR body to be test body, and we also do some dry running here. If test is true, we just echo what we would do as opposed to actually say comment on an issue, or sorry, comment on the pull request, which is what we would do for real. Then finally our check. If the PR body is empty, we comment and say, hey, please fix that. So we could run this right now and verify that the behavior works with workflow run PR check.yaml. Actually, let's just do this interactively. It's a little easier. So I'm going to select PR check. So for body, let's make sure that it does the comment when there's nothing. We'll set test to true. So now that's running. So we'll come back to this in a second. We'll notice that over here, our tests have finished. So we know that they failed. That's not a surprise. So if we view them here, we'll just look at the output for all of the jobs in this run. And sure enough, just a sea of red, all of our platforms that we run tests on have failed. So unlike with the linter, our annotations don't help us a lot in this CLI repo. All we know is that Go ran some tests and tests failed. So we have to actually look at the logs to see what the test failures were. So you could do this, use -- log, but that's going to be a lot of output. I mean, we just ran a bunch of jobs against a bunch of platforms, and it's just a lot. It's a whole lot of content. And, we're going to be grepping this in a second anyway, so we can pare that down. But, if you wanted to scan it first as a human, you can do -- log failed. That only shows you logs for steps that actually failed. So right away, we're seeing far fewer lines. We're just seeing the test suite output. That's really cool. So from here, if we wanted to narrow that down even further, can grab the run ID. Actually, just grab this little helpful hint here. And we're going to grep that for that. This is part of every test failure in our test suite is this 3 dashes and fail. We want to grab a few lines after that so we can actually see what the failure was. And there we go. So across the whole build matrix, we can see that this very silly test has failed on all of our operating systems. So, if this was a real test failure, we could really quickly ascertain, is it failing for all platforms? Is it platform specific? Is it 1 of 3 or 2 of 3, or is it 3 of 3? and we can get to solving the problem that much more quickly. So I could fix this and push, but we know what's going to happen. It'll run green. So we're going to switch back over one more time to our testing repository, and maybe make some changes to that pull request automation. So over here, we ran the test. It worked, or rather, it succeeded. Let's take a look at the log and make sure that it did what we expected. So we didn't pass any content at all for test body. So we would want it to comment, and sure enough, there's our echo that it would comment. So at this point, maybe we want to expand this, and we want to make this conditional a little bit more nuanced so that it triggers if the PR body is really short. So we already have this kind of change on deck here to check for a word count, a character count of less than 10 on the body string. So this way, like if somebody just says like hi, then we're still going to ask for some more clarification. So now we have this change, and this could be the first of many changes. And so what I really don't want to do is have to do like a git add, git commit, git push, workflow run for every one of my changes. That would be a little bit tedious. So we're going to real quickly just take a little detour and add two helpful aliases. So the first one, I'm going to call it current branch or cur-branch. This is just a really like short little utility for grabbing the current branch name. I don't really want to type out git rev-parse abbrev head all the time. And so now GH knows how to tell me what the current branch is. That looks right. So the next alias is actually going to help us streamline some of that debug flow. So I want to call it workflow test, and we are going to directly commit the workflow file that we're interested in. So we'll take an argument for that file name. We'll do our git commit, do our git push, and then we'll invoke workflow run with that same file name. This is very important. We also want to pass -ref. You saw me use -ref earlier. This is how you say to GitHub Actions, hey, please run this file at, say, the skip branch as opposed to the default branch. And now we're here, we're going to use cur-branch as we set up earlier. So very important final detail is $at. This is going to take, actually, let's do it like this. So $at is going to take all of the things, all the arguments that we send to this alias and just kind of put them at the end. So the end result will be telling workflow run the workflow that we want to run as well as any inputs that we want to provide it. So now we have workflow test. We can run it. We want to test prcheck.yaml, and we want to do some input. So this time we want to pass a very short body. Let's just say it's 3 characters long, ABC. Got to make sure that we set test to true. GH helpfully commits, pushes, runs the workflow. So now we can watch it until it completes. I should really edit in some music here. Just pretend it's there. Ran. Grab the log for what we just ran. And now, test buddy does have content, but we still commented because we tweaked our conditional to care about the length of the body. So I could keep going, make some more changes, run my little alias, and finish up this work. But for now, I think we're going to call it a day. So thanks so much for watching. If you're excited about this, you want to learn more, look at the video description. I'll have links down there to to a gist with some of the aliases that I used here. links to our discussion forum where you can just give us general feedback, tell us kind of what you're doing with these new commands. And as always, if you find any bugs in GH, it is open source. Please do file bug reports on our repo. Links for all that in the description. And thanks again for watching. Have a great one.